just want to tell you kind of how this series is going to work, and then we're going to welcome our first person in it. So in Genesis chapter 3, something very interesting happens. Adam and Eve had made the decision to disobey God, and sin had entered the world. And because of sin, there's brokenness, there's death, there's decay, there's a lot of things that have come into the world because of sin. But one of the worst things that have come into the world because of sin is this, shame. And so what happened was this. When they ate of the fruit, they heard God in the garden, and they hid. Well, the whole point of this series, and my hope for you today, is you realize that there is no hope in hiding. You have to come out of hiding to have hope. And so we call this hope again. You may have seen our Facebook ads. You may be here because you saw a Facebook ad or a friend invited you. In order to hope again, you got to come out of hiding. And I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to say it very boldly, and I have a lot of resolve about this. Shame has no home here. Okay? Shame has no home here. And so if you're one of those people that have their stuff all together and you're perfect and you like to look down on others because of things they've gone through in their life or things they may have done in their life, this place is going to make you really uncomfortable. Because that ain't who we are. Because we don't hide, we expose. And when we expose, we love strong and we lead even better because we take people to Jesus. Amen? All right. Y'all good with that? All right. Here we go. I want you guys to do it the way the Grove does it. Not the way you've been taught to do it in other places, but the way we do it in this house. I want you guys to welcome Kathryn McPeters to the stage. Hey, Kathryn.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Say hey to all your friends.
Hey, friends.
Hey, friends. So I have my notebook up here. This is my Bible. It's got all my Bible stuff on it. So, Kathryn, thank you for doing this. It's so awesome that you're doing this today. I'm really honored to have you up here. But before we get going and we get too serious, I have a few questions I want to ask you.
All right.
These are big questions. You ready?
Gotcha.
All right. Favorite cereal?
Lucky Charms.
That was clearly not the right answer. I was thinking Fruity Pebbles, right? Like Fruity Pebbles in the house.
No.
Lucky Charms. Well, that's all right. Favorite TV show?
Chopped.
Ah,
Yeah.
it's a cool show. It's a cool show.
Braylon likes it. She likes to pretend she's cooking.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. All right. Are you a night owl or a morning person?
Morning.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, I have to get up at 5 a.m. I can't stay up late.
And that's the whole thing of our conversation series. Thank you guys for attending today.
See ya.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Yeah, I think I would like to know everything, but that comes with like instant regret. So, flying maybe.
Flying maybe?
I don't know.
If I can't know everything, I will fly. Okay, flying. I think flying would be a pretty cool one. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you, just some really basic info so the people that might not know you can kind of know you just a little.
Okay. Yeah. I'm 24. I'm married to Jake over there. Jake.
That's why y'all couldn't see him, but we could. He was like, yes, that's me.
That's me.
That's me.
Hi. We have a beautiful little girl. She's 4 years old, and she pretty much runs the house. She'll be 5 in October. And I work full-time. And we have a hairless cat. So there.
Some of y'all didn't catch that. She said she had a hairless cat.
Hairless. Her name's Ruby.
It's the ugliest cute thing I've ever seen.
You know what? I weighed her yesterday, and she weighs 15 pounds.
Without hair.
Without hair. She's like a pig. I mean, I would have put a picture up for y'all, but...
So basically, did y'all hear anything she just said? She has a hairless cat.
Mm-hmm.
We should have put a picture up.
We should have. That would have been a good idea.
But then people might not come back next week.
Oh.
It's an ugly, cute cat. It's a cute, ugly cat. It's the strangest thing. So, hey, listen. That's awesome. Some really cool things about you. Some goofy things that you like or morning person kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into what we're here to talk about today.
Okay.
So today, we're here to talk about some of your life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so why don't you just kind of dive right in? I think the easiest way to do it is just jump right in to the deep end. And so, go.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we moved to the Spartanburg area about 20 years ago. We were enrolled in school and all that stuff, and my mom's parents followed us down here, and they both were diagnosed with cancer around the same time. And around the middle of first grade, my mom made a very brave decision to homeschool 3 kids. She
brave.
was a little crazy. I would never do that.
No.
And which was kind of good because it gave us a little bit of flexibility in terms of, taking school with us where we would go with the appointments and such. My parents made it a big thing for us to be involved in our church. So we would go Sunday twice, Wednesday, all that fun stuff, Awanas. So God was always, in our life. But I would say God focused, not really God centered, I guess, if that makes any sense.
That's good.
So probably around the age of 11, my brother was going to a soccer tournament. And for some reason, I kind of remember like I wasn't supposed to go on this trip, and I was upset at my mom or something like that. And so last minute, I decided like I was going to go and join my dad and my brother on this soccer tournament trip in Tennessee, which I hated soccer. It was not my thing. So I would have preferred to be anywhere but, with my mom at the time because we couldn't get along. So I went on this trip, and it was June 11th of 2008 was when my dad molested me. And that would have gone on for about a year. I see my...
It's okay. This is big stuff. It's okay. Her mom's in the audience today. Y'all give it up for her mom. Oh.
And that would go on for about a year and a half. Thank you. It was September of 2009 was when I told my mom what had happened. And thank God she believed me. As you can imagine, we went through a whole lot of heartache. He was removed from the house, and we had these meetings with, police, and my dad's plan was to turn himself in and go to jail. Unfortunately, we never really got to that point. Because of October 18th of 2009, my dad attempted suicide, and he passed away on October 21st of that same week. And it's so strange because I remember exactly what we were doing, where we were. When my mom got that phone call, he was found unconscious in a hotel room, and housekeeping actually was the one that found him on the floor. So, I remember, the night that my dad left, and I remember him telling me, making him pinky promise to me that I was not, to blame myself for what happened, that he made me promise that, this isn't my fault. And I took that pretty seriously, but what I really struggled with was the death. I was 12 when he passed away, and I was left with this feeling of regret. What if I hadn't told my mom? And this series of questions of, if I wouldn't have done this, or if I wouldn't have told anybody, he would still be here. So, the abuse wasn't an issue, but the death, it really felt like it was
kind of blamed yourself.
My fault, yeah. So we dealt with a lot of death in our family growing up. We lost both of my mom's parents, my great grandma, my uncle, and my dad within a short period of time. So dealing with death was kind of common for me at that age. But my mom, she moved on rather quickly. And I gave my parents a lot of crap for that. And
is that true, Mom? Did she give you a hard time?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's like, yeah.
Yeah, Thomas can agree with that. I didn't make it easy on them. And my mom can, kind of agree that maybe it wasn't the best decision because my dad died in October, and then they started dating in June of 2010. So it was a very short amount of time. And, in trying to deal with the death and trying to deal with, my feeling, trying to deal with, what had happened to me. I didn't really know how to do that. And I was kind of alone in that my mom was focusing on her boyfriend at the time, and she was dealing with things in her own way. And so I felt, as if I had not only lost my dad, and now I'm like forced to have a relationship with somebody that I just, didn't like. I was alone in that because she wasn't really available for me during that time, because she was married to a guy she didn't know for 13 years, and I was dealing with what I was going through, and we didn't know how to be there for each other. So
give us a little bit, like, you blamed yourself, but what was, you said you felt alone. Mm-hmm. And so in feeling alone, how did you kind of process that with your church attendance? And, was there a church that was trying to help you at the time, or did the church even know what was going on, or any of that?
Yeah, we had started going to a new church during all of that, so it wasn't really our home church, and I think there was some. I don't really remember what was going on, so it wasn't really something that we were like super involved in. I went on like a youth trip with them for a week, and
gotta love youth trips, right?
Yeah.
Everybody loves a good youth trip.
Yeah.
Except nobody actually loves a good youth trip, except youths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a great time.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. So listen, that's just a little bit of her story, right? That's just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to say this. I'm incredibly proud of you for wanting to share your story. It takes a lot of courage to sit up here and talk in front of people about these very private, what feels like should be private things. Why do you want to share your story? What is your hope for sharing this with everyone today?
I know that my story is not really uncommon. The statistics of sexual assault is extremely high, and it's extremely common for young girls to be assaulted by someone that they know. So my goal and my hope is to encourage specifically young women that they're not what Satan calls them to be. They're not what people say that they are a daughter of a king.
Yeah.
You are loved. And I love this verse, and I shared it a couple of days ago. I think it was like Matthew 10:13, something like that. And it is, you are worth more than a whole flock of sparrows. And, you could be thinking like, oh gosh, they're just birds, because there's other verses like rubies and diamonds and things like that. But, when you think back to Genesis and in the creation, his people are his favorite creation, right? And he loves us more than anything that he's ever created. And so I want to encourage and share my story, and I want to encourage younger women that you are loved more than anything in the world. Like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to be anything to get his love, because he's going to love you regardless of what you've done in your past and your future. You've already earned his love just by his creation.
Sheesh. Man, that's good. That's so good. And so I imagine it took you a little while to get to that place.
Yeah.
And so why don't we talk a little bit about how, so at 12 years old, here you are processing the abuse that you experienced and the death of your dad. And so here you are in this place. Did you always feel like what you just said?
No, I think, I was grounded at some point. Like I usually, yeah, I was grounded for like 2 years probably. And I just remember, reading about Job in his story. And a verse was, "For the Lord has given me what I have, and the Lord has taken it away. So I'll praise the name of the Lord." And I think that was just kind of like a turning point for me. But in terms of accepting myself and accepting my story and using that, but it was going to take several years for me to really fully accept that and to fully lay my life down for Christ. So I think there was a moment and a goal to be who God wanted me to be and to do the things that He's called me to do. But it took a long time for me to really release that control.
Yeah. So the releasing of control, I think a lot of us probably struggle with that. It's interesting that God never asks us to do anything super easy.
Yeah.
Because easy doesn't take faith, right? Mm-hmm. Easy. If it were easy, you could do it, right? But faith is required when things are hard or when things are difficult, especially when you're dealing with things at 12 years old. I mean, one, you're young and, you're still growing and you're still, developing psychologically. And so you've got that happening. And then you've also are processing this great hurt. Mm. And I think, one of the things, Kathryn, I think is really interesting is a lot of people, when they're hurt or they're wounded or they're blaming, what tends to happen is we push away from God. Mm-hmm. What would you tell someone that might be in the crowd right now that is wounded, hurt, and kind of pushing away from God? What's a piece of advice that you might be like, hey?
Yeah, that's my whole life. I'm a huge control freak, just because of my experiences in life. So my husband's laughing at me. Yeah, I am a huge control freak. So every time that life would get hard for me, I'd be like, God, this is unfair. And just be like, I'm going to do it on my own because you're not coming through for me. But that's completely the opposite of really what's going on. And what I would encourage is you to kind of embrace that pain and embrace that growing, because, I love the analogies in the Bible sometimes, and I love the garden themes that's going on. I don't know what verse this is, but it's talking about, I'm going to paraphrase it for you, but it's talking about a fruit tree, I think, and it's talking about pruning and cutting back the branches. And so to think about the word cut, like that's pretty aggressive and pretty painful, right? So that's a pretty painful experience. But at the same time, He's also pruning you and pulling back these branches that are to be taken down so that more fruit can grow. So my encouragement is to really embrace the cutting and to embrace the pruning, because those are the things that are putting you into your purpose. Those are the things that are creating you to be who God calls you to be, because He's taking away the bad and He's allowing more things to grow that are going to be fruitful and produce His purpose for you.
And this is actually an example of that. Why don't you tell them a little bit about 11 years ago, you kind of had this moment where you were like, oh, my story. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you tell them a little bit?
So About 11 years ago, back to the whole Job situation, and I was reading my Bible, and then that light came on that was like, I'm supposed to, like embrace my story and share it and all this stuff. And I don't know, like within a week or so, I'm like sitting down on my floor, and then I get this vision of just me like sitting on stage and, speaking about my story and sharing it with people. And so it's crazy because here I am 11 years later, and kind of living out that purpose and living out that vision that God called me to do. And I think there's hope in that because the Israelites were in the wilderness for 40 years. They didn't get to their promised land for 40 years. And it took me 11 years to get to this stage, to get to this moment. And so even though it may take some time, there's still hope for your purpose.
That's so good. That's so good, you guys. Like, come on. So good. Like, I hope you guys get that 11 years ago, God shared something with her. And we didn't get into how she felt about that at the time, but it's pretty incredible to see that God is faithful to what he says.
Mm-hmm.
He's faithful to what he says. And some of the things he says is, I will never leave you nor forsake you. That my love cannot be measured, right? And the thing about that is, this is how it says it in Ephesians. It says how deep, how far, how wide, how long. And the point of that is not that we get a tape measure out, because we can't find a tape measure capable. And so one of the most challenging things when we're hurt or wounded or blaming or hiding in shame is to remember that God's love makes a promise.
Mm-hmm.
And God keeps his promises. Even if it's 11 years later.
Yeah.
Even if it's 40 years later, God made a promise to every person in this room.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of you guys, God has made a promise. And I think it's incredible that her story helps us see that. And I'm willing to bet that many of you are sitting here listening to her talk, and you're going, that's me. That is me. I am living in the in-between where she was, between that, when she was 12 to when she was reading Job, to even when that light bulb went off, and to the present. The thing about it is you can't get here without going there.
Yeah.
And that's what she's saying. So many of us, when we encounter pain, we want to skip the there and just get here.
Yeah.
And so she said something a minute ago, and I want to explore it a little bit. She said, you got to kind of embrace it. You got to kind of hold on to the pain. I don't think that's exactly how you said it, but how, tell, if you were sitting here with someone that had a similar experience, tell them what step you would take.
Yeah, I don't think I did it right, but, if I could go back, I think I would have had somebody to talk to about it, and I think I would have. I don't know, that's a hard question to answer.
It is a hard question. I put her on the spot. She didn't know I was going to ask that question.
I didn't know this was coming. I wouldn't do it alone.
That's good.
That's a big thing, because I have tried for so long to do life on my own, and it has failed miserably. And that's one thing that I would encourage everybody is, if you're going through something, don't push people away or don't go into hiding, embrace your journey and don't do it alone, because you're not created to do anything alone, right? We have a God who is there for us in every single moment. And he has told you not to worry, to cast your fears, and to put everything on him, because he's going to do it. He's going to take care of you, and he's going to get you through it. It may not be fun and it may not be easy, but you're going to get there.
So good. You're going to get there. Why don't we try to say it? Say it with me. I'm going to get there.
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 That's so good. So good. So one of the hardest things, I think, when you start sharing your story is you worry about how others may see you. And I just want to point something out. I love the audacity that you're sharing this story with. Like, yeah, this happened. So what?
Yeah.
Like, God's using it. Step aside. Like, I love that. Like, I love that tenacity. And here's why. I don't think that just happens. I think you have to go through a process.
Yeah.
And I think, Romans 8:28, we sling this verse around like it's candy sometimes. But the reality is what it says is this. God works all things for good. For those that love and are called according to his purposes. And so here's what I know. You're loved and you have a purpose. And so what I know is going to happen is God's going to work whatever you're facing, just like he did with Kathryn. Like, if you could try to just imagine when she was 12 years old, I'm sure she didn't have any framework for any good ever coming from that. Right? That's not seeable then. Like, did you see the good that could have happened from that in the moment? No. Right? None of us do. In the storm, we see the storm, right? We see the pain. We have the question. And so you might find yourself in here today, and what you are experiencing is the storm. You might be where she was. And so our hope today about having this conversation is that you leave or have a boldness about the reality of this. God will work it for my good. And when God starts working something for our good, it's never singular. It's always for others. This is how I like to say it, Kathryn. I like to say, it's my story. It's for them. Yeah. But it's about him. Yeah. Right? Yeah. My story, but it's for them. But it's always going to be about him.
For the glory of God.
For the glory of God, yes. Right? And so I just want to a few more questions, and then we're going to move on to some other things. But what would you tell yourself if you could go all the way back to 12-year-old Kathryn? What's something you'd say? You would grab Kathryn by the face and say, Kathryn, this. What would it be?
Jesus.
Jesus. How many of you, some of y'all are like, what? That's all you got? Like, really? But it's we joke about Jesus is the answer, right? Like, I love when we're in a Bible class. I remember in college, Kathryn, I was in one of my systematic theology classes, and I can't remember the question, but he asked me the answer, and I didn't know it right off the top of my head. And so I was like, Jesus. And the professor was like, would you like to expand on that? I was like, no. And he was like, I asked you a question. You need to answer it. I'm like, Jesus is the answer. Yeah. And he was like, you're not going to answer the question? I was like, I did answer the question. After about 5 minutes, he didn't think it was nearly as funny as I did. But here's the thing, guys. That's not a cop-out answer. No. It's really not. Because here's the thing. Sometimes we get so caught up on what happened to us that we blame the one who is trying to heal us. And it's one of the things about abuse that's really hard is, and you said it this way. You said, I'm a control freak, or I tried to do life alone. And the reason she did that, and one of the things God had to get her to, was because of what she experienced. There's safety if nobody's around me. Yes. It's protective. Right? Shame tells us it's more protective for me to say nothing and avoid people and take the chance than it is to take the chance. But that's hurt speaking. This is how Jesus speaks, and you already brought it up, and so I'm just going to piggyback on what you said. You said, cast my cares on him, for he cares for me. Yeah. Right? Some of you guys walked in the door today, and you thought you were just showing up for church. But 11 years ago, a series of very tragic things took place. 11, 12, well, it's been longer than that now, hasn't it? When you were 11 or 12. Yeah. Some very tragic things took place. And God's working them for good in the present. Because you're in this room. Yeah. You're in this room, and you know who you are, and God is working, and he's speaking to you, and he's speaking loudly. And so I would encourage you to do what Kathryn said to do. Just say Jesus and go, I need you. I can't do this alone. Mm-hmm. And you have a constant companion in Jesus. And I promise you, the Grove Church, we're for you guys. We're 100% for you. So, Kathryn, we're going to wrap this thing up. But before we do that, I just want to say I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I get to pastor her. And so I'm really proud of the fact that you're willing to stand up here and take this big, gigantic risk. And if you know Kathryn at all, I promise you she'd love to talk to you. She's got a lot more to this story. Listen, I mean a lot more to this story.
Yeah.
and here's what I would encourage you. If you want to talk to her, she would love to talk to you guys. And she'll be out in the lobby after service. And so you guys find her and just be, whatever you want to talk to her about. But here in just a minute, I'm going to pitch it back to you in just a second. But here in just a minute, the worship team's going to come up. And we're going to sing 2 more songs. And I just want you to know that these altars are open. You don't have to come. You can. It's totally up to you. But if you just know that you've been running away from Jesus because of pain or something that's happened in your life, I'd encourage you, run toward him and run down here. We've got a prayer team that's ready to pray with you. If you don't want anybody to pray with you, just be like, I'm good. I just want to come hang out with Jesus. I don't need you to touch me. Thank you. We're good with that too. And so here's what I want to ask. And this is a big question. How has God been faithful to you?
I think just because I'm sitting here today, my life has not always been easy, and I've struggled, with some mental health and some other things, and the fact that I've clung to the promises of God that He has promised good for me, and I'm just a sitting example of just the faithfulness that God has given me and provided for me. I have spent a really long time running from God, and I would be like, okay, God, I'm done, and there'd be like this much of me, the control freak of me, that's like, yeah, right, okay, I'm really gonna do this. But I think once I fully surrendered and was at the bottom, once I fully surrendered, I was, that's when God really started working in my life. And I have found that I really can't do it on my own. And I don't want to go back to doing it on my own anymore, because this is so much better.
Wow. That's so good. That's so good. Hey, listen, thank you so much. I know this is a little uncomfortable, a little different than what you might be used to. But I just want to tell you, your story is impacting me. And I know it's impacted others. And so I think there's going to be a lot of fruit that comes from this conversation.
Yeah.
And, one last question.
Okay.
I promise it's the last question. How is it possible that you like Lucky Charms?
Because it's like the best of both worlds. You get a little bit of plain cereal and a little bit of like sweetness. So it's a balancing act.
She actually has an answer for that question. It's the marshmallows. Everybody knows it's the marshmallows.
It is.
It's
it
the
really
marshmallows.
Is. It's the marshmallows.
Do you pick the marshmallows out of the cereal?
Yeah, so we used to get the off-brand, from Walmart, because, we rolling on a budget here, right?
Yeah.
And so we got a big bag of what are they, Magic Stars, something like that. And I would eat them breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacks.
Snacks.
Mm-hmm.
They're the best snack. Cereal is the best snack.
I do.
It
Yeah.
is the best snack. Kathryn, there's somebody in here today, at least one somebody. They've heard everything we've said, and they're hurting. And in their mind, they're doing what I like to call mental gymnastics, where they're everything in them screaming, today is my day.
Yeah.
But their mind is struggling to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You keep saying letting go and surrender. What would you say to that person you've got the opportunity to speak directly to them, what would you tell them?
It's okay to not be okay.
That's good. And guess what? This is the perfect place for that.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Pastor Keith here. I just wanted to hop on and say thank you for tuning in. I hope that today's message encouraged you and blessed you. If you want to find out more about the Grove Church, go to bethegrove.com. You can submit prayer requests, you can support this ministry there, and we would love to get connected and hope to meet you soon.